Last week, YouTube sent me a message congratulating me on being on the platform for a full year. Seems like that time has just flown by. And I thought after 35 videos, I'd share some of the lessons that I learned making that content and what I've learned in a full year on YouTube. I'm doing a walk around. There's a local lake. It's been very cold here. This is the first day to really get outside and walk in a couple of weeks. So I figured I would take you along with me. There'll probably be a few jump cuts as I try to step over ice and things. So let's get started. The first thing I learned is that growing a channel takes quite a lot of time. It kind of makes sense. I'm in a pretty saturated niche, and there's a lot of folks out there, not like the early days of the platform where you could grow pretty explosively. Only a certain percentage of people that watch a video are going to subscribe, which reminds me, please like and subscribe. My best performing video has about 10,000 views, and I've got a few more, around 2,000, just under, and then everything else is smaller than that. With only a small percentage actually subscribing, that's not a giant number, so it kind of explains the small growth. But, change hands here, it appears that it's accelerating a little bit. I'm getting more subscribers, so that's a good thing. I think when you go into this, you just have to be realistic about how fast things are going to go. I think unless you're far more talented than me at writing scripts and being entertaining, it's going to take a little bit to get to that monetization threshold and the other goals that you might have. Take a quick break and show you the ice on the lake here around me. It's quite a pretty little place. There's probably some road noise. We're not too far from a fairly major road, and there's a dog barking off in the distance. May turn around to get away from that. So the next thing that I learned is burnout is a real thing, and you have to protect yourself from that and not push yourself too hard. First time I heard somebody talk about they were burnt out and they were going to take a break from YouTube, I was like, well, yeah, these videos are only like 10 minutes long. How much work is that? Turns out, quite a lot. Short videos, things like 5, 6, 7 minutes long, can take hours and hours to produce. And some of my more involved videos have taken 20 or more hours to produce. That's a lot of commitment to something that for me is a part-time enterprise. Right now, we just wrapped filming a few months ago on my first documentary feature. It's kind of an arty time-lapse feature. And we're in the kind of marketing and trying to get it into film festival phase right now. That's been a lot of fun. Still taking a lot of time though. The second documentary is shooting right now. It's a building documentary, and with winter approaching winter's kind of here. They've got the outside finish for the most part and are working on inside things, but it's still a lot of time out shooting. And then we're in pre-planning for a science documentary next year. That's about one documentary too many, while still doing some commercial work, doing personal projects in the fine art world. So I think it's important to be realistic with how much content you can produce in any given amount of time. It looks really icy, so I'm going to turn back around. With a channel my size, it's not like I'm churning out videos and getting paid tens of thousands of dollars per. I've had one sponsored video that really didn't produce much. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we're doing this for the experience at this point, and there's no sense beating yourself up to get to deadlines that are arbitrary that you created yourself. Protect that free time. Make sure you're still doing things you enjoy. I've had some weeks that went into the 80s of hours trying to get all of my projects done. That's no fun, and that's how you get burnt out. So the next lesson that I learned is that equipment is important, but it's not as important as you might think. As good as cell phones have gotten, a good iPhone with good lights and good sound is probably good enough for most people getting started. I worked at a camera store for 6 years, and I'd helped a lot of people set up YouTube studios. So I kind of assumed that I was going to need high-end camera, high-end glass, high-end everything to be competitive. Turns out the story and content is really the driver of people clicking through. No matter how good your equipment is, if the story is blah or seems forced, people are going to click off and not subscribe. Not to say that gear isn't fun. I really enjoy gear, and I've reviewed quite a lot of it. But I think if I was starting over again, the first thing I would deal with is sound and light, and leave the camera gear until farther down the road. Sound is tough. My studio is in a basement right next to the HVAC room, so there's always a constant hum in the background. I actually bought some really cheap Hollyland wireless microphones that have built-in noise suppression, and in my space that sounds better than my multi-$100 Sennheiser shotgun mic, which is funny. Now you can fix some of that in post too, but the convenience of that little wireless microphone has been wonderful, and it's relatively inexpensive. And that and a couple of soft boxes and lights, and I think most people with a cell phone are probably going to be able to create okay videos. And then you can spend money on camera gear as you want. The next lesson is that authenticity is way more important than chasing what you think the algorithm wants. Like most big companies, especially tech companies, Google doesn't actually publish their algorithm or tell you what it specifically is important. The insiders tend to give very general advice that seems like good advice. A lot of channels promote this is what you need to make to chase the algorithm. And I tried that. I really researched YouTube for way too long. I tend to do that. I tend to research things instead of just jumping right in. And I thought, well, gosh, I need to perform well against the algorithm if I want to grow a channel. And that kind of makes sense. But the videos were horrible. I didn't even upload them. I recorded several. And I just went, this just seems really forced. And I've subscribed to channels before where somebody seems to be giving good advice, and then you realize their content gets really repetitive. It seems forced, and they're obviously chasing numbers instead of just making great content. And I think people either unsubscribe or stop paying attention to you. I certainly do. If I tune into a channel and the advice gets really repetitive and formulaic, I unsubscribe. So I think it's better to be true to what you're interested in doing than chase some unknown algorithm. I would guess, having worked early in my career for a giant tech firm out of California, that algorithm isn't a static thing. It's most likely updated as the platform changes and the needs of their advertisers change. So chasing something that no one really understands except for the people at Google, and maybe only a few of them are at Alphabet that own YouTube, I think that's not smart. I think my best performing videos are the ones where I've made an effort to teach something that I'm genuinely excited about. It's getting a little dark, so I'm going to adjust the exposure and I'll be right back. The next lesson, and this is one that I still struggle with on my first drafts, is that thumbnails and titles really do matter. It seems silly that you could spend 20 hours making a great video, and because your thumbnail's a little jumbled or the title isn't super clear, nobody's going to find it. But it kind of makes sense. There's a lot of people advise, they think of the thumbnail first and then worry about the content. Not quite that aggressive, but I did 2 videos early on. The first one had been my best performing video at that point by a good margin, had a really simple thumbnail, really direct title, and it did real well. Well, after seeing that and having a couple other ideas along that line, I did a second video. This time, I kind of rushed making the thumbnail. I didn't think through the title very well. And despite being a very similar video in the general theme, it did really poorly. So I went in, redesigned the thumbnail, redid the title, hit the publish button on our panel, and suddenly started growing like crazy. So as much as it irks me and it's not my favorite thing to do, it does matter. Those are the things that are marketing. It's basically a small advertisement for clicking on your content and watching it. So treat it like that. It's an opportunity to get people to click through and then see all the work that you did. It does matter. The next lesson that I learned is don't be in too big a rush to pick your niche or the direction for your channel. Again, I had some pretty good ideas. I thought I wanted to create something that was inclusive of all of the fine art forms that I participate in. I wanted to do video, photo, printmaking, alternate photography, and other fine art stuff, along with some kind of life advice for creatives in one channel. And while I may eventually be able to include some of the not video and photo centric stuff, I still have some plans to do some like cyanotype videos. I think developing a niche takes some experimentation, and I quickly learned that my advice stuff just didn't do very well. I'm glad I published it because I learned. It was an experiment. Maybe I'll try that again when I have a bigger channel. It is kind of silly to give people success advice if you only have a couple hundred followers, so that kind of makes sense. But do experiment. If you're trying to replicate somebody else's success, I think it's going to be really obvious. I want to be a little bit different. So don't rush that, do experiments, and understand that even on big established channels, there are videos that don't do well. So if you put something out there and it gets 10% of the clicks, that happens, well, maybe not 10%, but there are videos that underperform in even the big, really commercial channels. So it's going to happen. And when you're small is the time to have those risks. The consequences just aren't that great. If I have an underperforming video, it's not like I can't pay my bills. I'm paying my bills without YouTube because I'm not making any money there. So take time, experiment. Figure out what it is that you want to say, try things, and maybe the first one doesn't work. Try it 2 or 3 more times. A close friend of mine who's had a lot of success with shorts says sometimes I upload something and it doesn't do well. I take it down, upload it again a couple days later, and it does great. So we don't know all the things that are influencing click-through and who gets shown what. So just be persistent, try things out, and eventually I think the niche will create itself for you. Got 2 more lessons left. The next one is be prepared for opportunities. I assumed, I think like a lot of new creators, that it was going to be a while before I heard from a sponsor. I got a sponsored video when I was just over about 250 subscribers, relatively recently. It was a really fun experience. Didn't make a lot, but it was really fun. I got to understand how contracts work, and I got to talk to a lawyer to make sure I wasn't signing my life away. It was an interesting experience. And I tell other artists all the time, part of being lucky is being prepared to be lucky. On my time-lapse project that I'm just getting ready for the film festival circuit right now, it started as a passion project and I had really no intention of it becoming a serious thing. But I'd been out there on a specific site for a while shooting the time-lapse, going out once a week at least. And one of the people that worked there asked me what I was working on. Well, being an artist and having done professional practices in college and a couple times outside of that, I had my elevator speech kind of prepared. And I gave her the 2-minute spiel on what's going on, what I'm doing, and what I hope to achieve. She said, well, that's super interesting. You need to bring it to this other person. Maybe you'll be able to get some help. I was like, well, that's great. So I knew the other person, so I went and showed her the demo. And suddenly she got me connected to some of the science resources that we're at. It's a restoration project site for tallgrass prairie. So I got connected to the science folks, to the operations folks, got to participate in things like controlled burns, which was really exciting. And the project really took off. We got some funding. And when I tell that to folks that are just getting started or people that are even established and done quite a lot of film festival work, they're like, wow, you're really lucky. It's like, yeah, I am. But I was ready for it. I was prepared to give that speech. So don't worry about the size of your channel. Opportunities are going to come. If you want to talk to sponsors, make great content. A lot of sponsors want really targeted content. They want to know that the people that are going to be shown the content are the people that might be interested in their product. So if your niche is specific enough, or you do videos down a certain path that's interesting to them, smaller companies may reach out to you. They probably can't afford to reach out to one of the giant channels. So you may get opportunities earlier than you think. Just be ready to have that conversation. And the final lesson today that I had to learn the hard way was, remember, if it starts feeling like the job that you left to be creative, you're the boss. If you started out thinking, hey, I'm going to publish a video every week, and your workflow just isn't that efficient yet, change it to every 2 weeks. It's fine. I follow a channel that has never posted more than once a month, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers. They make really good content, and I believe they do other things during the day, so that's probably the bandwidth that they have. Really churning out content works for some folks, and if you're really efficient with how you produce work, that's great. If not, that's fine too. If it starts feeling like a job, I left a 40-hour-a-week job that paid pretty well to do this. When you're working an 80-hour week, or a 60-hour week, or a 50-hour week to get content made and do the other things that you're working on, you gotta love it. And if you don't, I mean, there's always gonna be hard stuff. Dealing with contracts, dealing with marketing and that kind of thing isn't my favorite subject, but most of the time I really love this. And the times I've gotten overwhelmed in the last year, I have to remind myself, hey, my documentary projects are all funded, so I have an obligation there and deadlines. So that kind of I don't have control over, but YouTube I do. My plan is not to do 3 documentaries at the same time ever again, probably only 2, and that should free up some more time to do this kind of work and produce a little bit more for the channel. But at the end of the day, you're the boss. If it starts feeling overwhelming, change something. Look for efficiencies. I know a lot of creation advice. They talk about hiring an editor. I need to start making money before that becomes a reality, but that's probably something I'm going to look at some point to see if that is something that works for me. Make good choices, be a good boss, be kind to your employee, and this can be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the lessons that I've learned. If you have any questions about the first year on YouTube and what it's like, if you haven't done it, or if you have and you have comments or thoughts, please share them in the comments section below. As always, please like and subscribe. We're a growing channel and I appreciate the support. Good luck on your art journey, and we'll see you next time.